Public relations is not media relations, and media relations isn't what most people think it is either. If you're a marketing executive or business leader exploring PR, this episode will help you avoid most common and costly mistakes that organizations make when hiring a PR firm.
Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by Review Maxer.
Hi, I'm Jason Mudd, and you're listening to On Top of PR. Today, I'm flying solo to give you straight talk about media relations. What is it, what it isn't, and what you need to know before you hire a PR firm. This episode is especially for first-time buyers, marketing leaders, and executives who want to make smarter, more strategic decisions when investing in public relations. So I'm going to start off with about a dozen. I'm going to talk about a dozen things that I think are important to keep in mind when you are exploring media relations for earned media coverage. And what most people think about is PR. But I want to start off with number one, which is a foundational truth. Public relations is not the same as media relations. Media relations, pitching journalists and earning news coverage is just one piece of the PR puzzle. Yet earned media is often the primary attribute people think of and focus on when they think of and talk about PR. Public relations is so much more. It includes thought leadership, content strategy, crisis communication, reputation management, executive visibility, speaking engagements, award recognition, community relations, stakeholder engagement, and even internal communication. There's a lot going on when you think about PR. It's not just media coverage. Smart organizations don't just chase headlines. They invest in long-term influence and reputation building activities that are primarily what public relations does best. Secondly, and this is critical, earned media is not advertising. Earned media can't be bought. It's not sponsored content. It's not advertorial. It must be earned. And that the way you earn media coverage is by offering something newsworthy that a journalist believes is valuable to their audience. The key part there is to their audience. So if someone guarantees you coverage or sells you placements, you're not buying PR, you're buying ads. And that's fine. You can buy ads. Just don't confuse earned media with paid media. The third item I think that's very important is understanding that a press release is not a strategy. Sure, a news release can help you secure a news story, but it's not required. Some of the most successful earned media coverage and the biggest earned media coverage we've gotten our clients over the years did not involve a news release at all. What it involved was a compelling and timely pitch, a pitch that fit the audience's the outlet's audience and their editorial focus. So meaning it was the right fit for their news outlet. The fourth thing is decisions about what news and outlet covers almost always comes down to geography and subject matter. Geography meaning the reach of their outlet and the audience they serve, or the subject matter, or both. So in other words, a daily metro newspaper is going to assign local writers and reporters to cover the local regional geography. They're not as likely to have national news stories in a geographic daily metropolitan newspaper, right? And a trade media outlet is most likely going to focus on the profession or the trade or subject matter that they tend to cover and have become known for. Journalists ultimately evaluate pitches based on news value, news judgment, and elements of news. Those elements of news include timeliness, impact, proximity, novelty, conflict, human interest. If your story doesn't check those boxes, it's unlikely to get covered. If you want to know more about elements of news and the difference between news value, news judgment, we'll put a link to this in our episode notes. Look specifically for 10 elements of news, and this will give you good background on it. But again, just remember, almost every news story a news decision comes down to, does this serve the geography or the subject matter that our outlet is known to cover? If you've got the wrong geography and the wrong subject matter, you're pitching the wrong outlet. Topic 5 here, and this is the part that surprises most people. The only audience that matters is the journalist audience, not your CEO, not your marketing team, not even the journalists themselves. The pitch must resonate with their readers, viewers, or listeners. That's who they're serving. If they are writing a story that doesn't fit the geography, subject matter, or interest of their audience, then they have completely whiffed. They've made a mistake. And if they fail to serve that audience, they'll lose the audience. When they lose the audience, they lose advertisers. When they lose advertisers, they lose revenue. So the journalism is in the for-profit business. They're in the business of making money. And the way they make money is writing great content that's relevant to the geography and subject matter their audience desires from them. And when they do that well and do it right, they build loyalty among their audience. When they do it wrong, they lose their audience. And so that's why the next tip, number 6, is yes, relationships with news or media outlets and newsrooms can help, but they do not override editorial standards. The best analogy I've ever heard is I could be the best man at the Wall Street Journal editor's wedding, and he still won't run my pitch if it doesn't fit the outlet's news value. A compelling story always matters more than a strong relationship. A smart question you might ask a PR firm is, who do you have relationships with in newsrooms today? What contacts do you have? How well known are you in newsrooms? And that seems like a great question on the surface until you really get in the business and you realize that a great story is better than having a strong relationship, because a great story is going to get covered. A great relationship helps. It helps get a foot in the door, might help take a lukewarm story and push it across the finish line if you've got a friend and you become a trusted resource in the newsroom. But at the end of the day, what really matters is how compelling that news story is. So I could have a great news story, go to a complete stranger, and they're going to run my news story if they can verify that it's legitimate. And again, it fits the geography and subject matter that they're looking for. Number 7, if you want coverage, focus on people, not products, brands, or buildings. Even in B2B, the best stories are about real people, the people behind the innovation, the ones that are impacted by the story, the ones that are impacted by the solution. Human stories outperform corporate messaging every single time. Something I like to explain to people is you've never watched a movie about a corporation or a legal entity. You might have seen a movie that was about a company. There was a TV series about Uber. There's been movies about Steve Jobs and Apple. But the trick is, or the point is, the show is actually about the characters. You've watched movies about characters within that organization, their successes, struggles, or failures. So characters count. Find the human interest angle within what you're trying to pitch to the media. Don't just think they're going to cover a company or a corporation or a legal entity or a building. Buildings can't talk. Buildings don't have a story to tell. The humans that built that building have a story to tell. And it's important we never lose sight of that. Number 8, I want to talk about a real example that might surprise a lot of our audience who's not familiar with PR and specifically with earned media coverage. The New York Times and a small trade publication once featured a company around the same time. Guess which one drove more traffic to their website? The trade publication, and it did so nearly by 2x the amount of traffic. Why is that? That's because the audience was highly targeted and actively engaged, meaning that the story focused on a company, right, that was relevant to an industry trade to 100% of that audience or to that market. Whereas running in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times did not have the same level of interest among its audience, which can be a combination of multiple professions, B2B and B2C individuals. And so when your audience is highly targeted and actively engaged, it's more likely to convert. Here's another little bonus insight for you. Stories written or covered about your expertise will more likely attract buyers or people wanting to buy from you than stories about your organization. Stories about your organization, your growth, your company, telling its story often actually attracts sellers, people trying to sell to you. So in other words, as a public relations professional, when I give my commentary or insights to a B2B trade media outlet, maybe it's PR Week, or maybe it's to Forbes or Entrepreneur Inc., and I'm giving expert advice and insights, maybe even expert topics, tips, and trends to help the readers, which are business people, I'm more likely to get people contacting me saying, I saw you quoted, I really liked what you had to say, I'd like to talk to you about, getting help from your company. But if I have a feature story written maybe in a local business journal or maybe even a local daily newspaper, or I'm featured on a podcast or something like that, I'm more likely to get people calling me saying, hey, I saw you in this magazine or on this podcast and about your great growth and all that. Could I interest you in a life insurance for your employees? Can I interest you in landscaping or janitorial services or office supplies or a copy machine or internet services for your locations, right? So the stories that are about your expertise actually attract buyers. The stories about your company often attract sellers. And short stories, they often perform better than long ones because they actually get read. People have short attention spans. I have had clients literally land $1 million piece of business with a news brief that's about 3 inches in a print business publication, whether it's a local business journal or a local daily newspaper's business section, where it was just enough to give information about the company, and somebody picked up the phone and called and said, hey, I'm interested in the services you offer. Can we have lunch? Can we talk? And long story short, that person ended up moving their $1 million account over to our client based off of one brief, literally a brief news story in a daily newspaper. Number 9, impressions and placements are not the whole story. Ask yourself better questions than looking at how many impressions did we get, how many articles do we have published, how many people did it reach, and please don't talk about advertising value equivalency. Instead, ask better questions. Was the outlet relevant to your ideal buyer? Is your ideal buyer consuming this outlet? Did it support your communication goals? Did it influence awareness, perception, or engagement? Did it build trust, considerations, and decisions to buy from or support your organization's efforts? PR isn't just about quantity, it's about quality and alignment. Although a bonus tip would be that frequency is very important too. So it's not just one media appearance from a shotgun effect that's going to get you media coverage or get you the market to shift over and be aware of you and suddenly want to start doing business with you. It's actually going to be the idea of getting frequency, but quality and alignment with your messaging and audience frequency is what's important. I always tell people, just like in real estate, they say it's location, location, location. In advertising, it's about frequency, frequency, frequency. Same thing with PR. You want to make sure you're frequently appearing, you feel omnipresent, you're always in the media, you're always getting attention for your brand. But you want to make sure it's also the quality and alignment. If you're in the wrong news outlet, if you're speaking to stay-at-home moms about your B2B services, it's certainly not a good fit. All right, the 10th thing I want to share with you is once you earn coverage, don't let it fade. Be intentional about keeping build the momentum and take the responsibility, the ownership, and the leadership of repurposing this content to get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible. We have a blog post with this content that I'll share in the episode notes with you that goes deeper into this topic. But for now, here's several things you can do with a piece of earned media coverage. First of all, you can share it with your sales team. They can use that they can share it with your leads. This is going to help them both soften the sale so they feel less like a salesperson and more credible in the eyes of your leads. That's also going to warm up the sale and make people like you, trust you, and want to do business with you more. You could use your earned media coverage in your recruiting process very similarly. You could have your recruiter sharing this media coverage with the candidates that are in your pipeline. You can also boost the article or the coverage in search engines using paid links. And then you can also mention it in your company newsletter, both internally and externally. You can cover it in your blog. You can post about it on social media. And then you can also turn it into retargeting ads. Like I said, we've got a blog post about this that we'll include in the episode notes. I really encourage you to check it out because it's pretty comprehensive. But just remember, earned media doesn't have to be a one-time event. It becomes a credibility asset that you can continue to promote. All right. Tip number 11 is a quick word of caution. I see this mistake happen quite a bit, especially with people who haven't hired a PR firm in the past, or just unsophisticated buyers of PR services, or just are not thinking through the entire process. Don't buy PR tools such as media databases, monitoring software, wire services, unless you have a specialist hired and they're ready to run or operate them, right? The tools don't get you coverage, the people behind them do. Buying PR software without a professional is like buying a race car without a driver, right? Or buying a racehorse without a jockey. It's just not a good idea. I would never recommend anybody go out and buy, a high-end graphic design software suite or video editing suite until somebody has already been trained on how to use them, and that person's already been procured or hired or assigned to do this work within your organization. So if you wouldn't go buy these assets before you have somebody ready, willing, and able, and trained and knowledgeable to use them, why would you let a salesperson sell you on buying a media database, media monitoring software, or a wire services contract until you're ready to go? And just another tip, if you're going to hire a PR firm and they're of any credibility or sophistication, they not only already have these tools internally, but they have these tools and more. They're also buying them at a volume discount. And if they're like our PR firm, they don't charge you any extra for having access and using these tools on your behalf. Not all PR firms do it that way, but I'm just telling you that you don't need to go out and buy this type of content or this type of these tools and software until you've got somebody ready to use them. Especially because let's say you buy a 12-month contract of it, it might take you 1, 2, or 3 months to get the PR firm selected, signed, and starting work. All right, the final tip I've got for you today is that PR is a long-term business strategy. It's not a one-time occurrence or a one-time campaign. It's not a stunt. It's not a quick win. It's not a quick gimmick. It is genuinely about building reputation. And Warren Buffett said it takes 20 years to build a reputation. The best work comes from years of consistent effort. I know this from running Axia for 22 years, that the clients that are with us the longest get the best results year over year. The clients that don't stay with PR for the long term, they get some great wins, but it fades just as quick. PR is a long-term endeavor and a long-term investment. So the best PR results come from years of consistent efforts. And when your PR partner is delivering value, they should become a strategic extension of your team. And that's a competitive advantage for your organization. Your PR firm should not be treated as a vendor that you rotate in and out or someone you call upon occasionally. I really believe that PR is a long-term endeavor. It's something that takes years to build a strong reputation, and you should be protecting it on an ongoing basis. So these are 12 things I think that every person buying public relations services should know about public relations. And more specifically, we spent a lot of time today focusing on media relations, which is a specialization of public relations. And media relations is an attempt or an effort to build relationships with the media in the long-term pursuit of getting media coverage. If this episode was helpful to you, I'd love for you to share it with a colleague or friend who might be considering PR for the first time, or a marketing colleague who's curious to know more about how PR actually works. Or, and we all know this, the executive that's really busy who thinks they might know a lot about PR, or maybe they're willing to admit they don't know much about PR at all, but they know it's important, they know it's valuable, and you want to set the right expectations with them when they start talking about the potentially hiring a PR firm or even hiring an in-house PR department. You can find more resources like this on our website at axiapr.com/resources, including our blogs, webinars, guides, and other PR planning tools. In fact, we've got a calculator that you can use to figure out if it's better and more or less expensive for your organization to hire an internal PR department versus outsourcing to an expert PR team. Hey, I want to say thanks for listening. We appreciate you and our audience, and we're growing with every episode, and we really appreciate it. It wouldn't be possible without you, your faithfulness to our show, you telling others about our show, and you leaving a positive review as well as subscribing to our show. So thank you for that. So I'm Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations. I'll see you next time as we help you stay on top of PR.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by ReviewMaxer. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and check out past shows at ontopofpr.com.